The U.S. State Department says meetings with senior Taliban leaders were, quote, candid and professional. U.S. officials and senior Taliban representatives met in Qatar over the weekend. It was the first direct dialogue between the countries since American forces withdrew from Afghanistan in August. The Taliban says the U.S. has agreed to provide humanitarian aid to Afghanistan, but is withholding former recognition of the Taliban. The State Department says it has concerns about security, terrorism, and the safe passage of U.S. citizens and its partners. U.S. officials say the Taliban will be judged on its actions, not only its words. For more on this, I want to bring in CBS News intelligence and national security reporter Olivia Gazis. Olivia, welcome. Great to see you. So the United States is still refusing to give political recognition to the Taliban. However, critics could say the meetings gave some legitimacy to the organization. Why did the Biden administration choose this method to engage with the Taliban?
Yeah, Tanya, the decision to have these talks led by the CIA's deputy director, David Cohen, was a concerted one. It came directly from the White House. And what sources told us was that that was in part to send a very clear message to the Taliban that counterterrorism is at the top of our priority list right now. As we well know, our ability to monitor the possible reconstitution and the activity of terrorist groups like ISIS-K and al-Qaeda in Afghanistan was greatly diminished once our military left. And that's obviously particularly concerning, which, as you said, the efforts to help dozens of Americans who want to leave get out of the country are still ongoing. So enlisting senior leadership from our intelligence agencies is one way to have these practical brass tacks discussions while avoiding most of the appearance of the effect that having a top diplomat like the Secretary of State be involved in the efforts there. You recall back in August, the CIA director, William Burns, met with a top Taliban leader to go over the logistics of our withdrawal at that time. The agency has often been used as a channel to have these conversations that aren't officially diplomatic and otherwise, they're just not ready for public view. So while it's true that the fact of the meetings happening it already bestows some legitimacy on the Taliban, the administration has really been at pains to say that the engagements have been businesslike and focused on vital national security interests like counterterrorism, like getting remaining Americans out.
And yet, at the heart of the matter, what specifically do both countries hope to get out of these talks, Olivia? Is it as simple as the Taliban needs aid and the U.S. needs some reassurances that, the people of Afghanistan will be treated with some, humanitarian-facing efforts?
Yes, definitely. I mean, the U.S., as I see, has three main priorities. So counterterrorism is top of the list. Getting Americans out of the country who want to leave is up there. And yes, forestalling this humanitarian crisis that is looming, that could balloon across the region and fuel further instability in the region, are top priorities for the U.S. For the Taliban, number three is a top priority. They absolutely need the resumption of foreign aid because most of Afghanistan's economy was highly reliant on that foreign flow of cash to even minimally function. So unless it starts flowing again, they are staring down a vast potential crisis of unemployment, the population going hungry, disease outbreaks, lights going out across the country, just as they're striving to consolidate power and govern. And so, that foreign aid is really the international community's, ours and the international community's principal source of leverage over them right now, and is also why the Taliban are turning to the likes of Russia, China, Pakistan, who may be willing to offer some of that assistance more eagerly, more readily, without insisting on concessions as the West does on inclusive government or women's rights, things of that sort.
And Olivia, there have been several deadly terror attacks within Afghanistan since the U.S. military withdrew. What has the Taliban said about partnering with the U.S. on counterterrorism efforts, as amazing as that might sound?
Yeah, no, for some people, it's anathema. I mean, these weekend's talks followed some really, really deadly attacks in northern Afghanistan that killed dozens of people, carried out by ISIS-K, which, as we know, is a sworn enemy of the Taliban and is doing all it can to undermine their burgeoning efforts at governing right now. But even though in ISIS-K, the U.S. has a mutual enemy with the Taliban, the prospects of any sort of cooperation on counterterrorism efforts is pretty dim, probably non-existent. The Taliban have already said that they don't want the U.S.'s help in countering ISIS-K. They claim they've got a handle on it. They've also warned of unspecified consequences if the U.S. Flies drones in in Afghanistan's territory, carries out these over-the-horizon strikes, which are the cornerstone of our counterterrorism mission. So they're a very unwilling partner. But you know what? The fact that the Taliban has never actually severed ties with al-Qaeda, which is a top counterterrorism concern for us still, makes them highly unreliable and, as I said, an anathema to partner with. Probably the closest and still highly imperfect partner that we have there, maybe some sort of arrangement with Pakistan, which has a vested interest in preventing any sort of mass exodus of people from Afghanistan crossing into its borders. History obviously has shown that they are far from the paragon of reliability themselves. So the counterterrorism mission in Afghanistan is going to be complicated, uniquely challenging, not least because of the lack of these reliable partners in the region going forward.
Olivia Gazis, thank you so much. We appreciate it.
Thank you, Tanya.